All right.
Yeah, guys, the season's over. Steve somehow swindled us into winning and cheated, obviously, and
Yep.
won the thing.
Yep.
Congratulations, Steve, on your heist
Thank
of the
you.
league.
See
Yep.
the trophy and belt
Yep,
here in their rightful places.
Cheatgate
That's
2025.
some nasty glare, just saying.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, it's awful. I'm gonna
I don't
adjust
even
this.
know. I'm looking at a chunk of the sun, basically. What the?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
The belt itself just has such a huge reflective face. It's like, too much.
This
But
time, Steve can remember to bring the trophy to the draft.
Yeah, I
I
sure
already
will.
told you, Steve. You forget. I'm making you drive home and going and
get
getting
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah, no, I will remember it.
That's bullshit. I want to see that
Yeah.
trophy.
No, I know you do, and especially now that it has two plaques affixed to it. I can show it off here.
Yeah, let's
Actually.
see
Did you
the actual
actually affix
plaques.
them?
Yeah, I actually put the plaques on, so we'll start there.
Okay.
Let me see if I can in. I don't know how well you can see that, but
That is sick.
yeah. There's the
All
Those are
right.
plaques.
bigger than I thought they would be.
Yeah.
Did you do the math to see how many years that thing can support?
I haven't. I mean, like, this is easily going to be 5 on this
Probably
side
like
and 5 on
30
this side.
years, right?
And I think so. I mean, it's at least 10 years, and then I don't know. I'd estimate like another probably 12 on top of that, so maybe 24 years
Then there's the back too.
would be my guess. And there is the back as well, so we could
Oh, that
wrap
thing's
around
gonna
the
be like
back
the
and
Stanley Cup. It's gonna wrap all
yeah,
the way
no. So I
around.
mean, we can
Yeah.
wrap around the
Yep.
back. We could
Probably
if
like
we
30
use
plus
the
years.
back two
Yeah, there's
spaces
no
will
reason
give
that
us
that's
like
gonna.
a lot of time.
I'm
Anyway, you can
pretty
see
sure that
Danny's
Casey's.
wonderful logo here. I don't. Again, the
Hell
glare is
yeah.
awful.
Yeah,
I'm
the glare's
sorry.
terrible, but it looks great.
It looks great, and then it is topped with this magnificent golden cup.
It's pretty sweet.
So yeah, that is the trophy.
But I'm pretty sure Casey's dad's league. It's been going on since the '80s. They had to get a second plaque like a couple years ago. I think Casey was telling me about that.
Oh
I
yeah,
was jealous. I was like, that is so cool.
we want that second plaque energy. We want to get there.
Yep. We
It's
got
the
to make
goal.
it. We got to make it through year 3 first, so before you get to
Right,
year
right,
30.
yeah. Well, in service of that and getting the league activated for year 3, let's go through some of these results. I see that you've got them up on the screen here.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of curious how you guys felt about the questions or the proposals that were on the survey. I feel like we got everything.
Yeah,
Is there
I'm
anything
sure
we
that there will
missed?
be issues that we'll need to address next
Of
offseason
course.
because of this, and I don't think that's ever going to change. But
Yeah.
as long as we're like, it's pretty responsive and no one feels like, this is a bad system or like we're just not addressing things. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's, this seems to work. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Like,
I will say that I don't really have a process. Like I'm not going to tell you like no, I'm not going to put that on the survey straight up unless it's like something that I really believe goes against the spirit of the league. Like if for example, Danny suggested that we vote on changing to an Empire format, and I vetoed that and didn't want to put it on the survey because I feel that that's as big as just saying let's convert this to a redraft. Like you're changing the entire game.
Yeah, that's a real different
I believe that
scenario.
if you go into it with the knowledge that your team has the potential to get wiped out, it completely changes the startup draft strategy for every team. No one would really be thinking, 3 or 4 years out. Everyone would be thinking like win now. Because that's
Right.
that's what you want to do in Empire League. You want to win that huge pot and reset everything. So those kinds of things I will kind of veto. But for the most part, regardless of how unpopular it may end up being when people actually end up voting on it, I will put your ideas forth because I believe that people should be able to have their ideas, voted on as long as it, in my opinion, stays within the kind of ethos of the league that we have running already. So,
is there any point at which we don't carry a proposal? Like, if it's been voted on like 5 times, it's always been rejected. We just leave it off 1 year. I'm
I
not
would
saying
say
it's permanently vetoed, but like, is
that's
there
a
a point?
good point to bring up because we haven't really run into this. Like this is only year 2, and
Right.
some people who offered a proposal, maybe something like gets rejected by a slim margin, and they want to re-roll it again the next season. I think on a case by case basis that makes sense, but in the case where things just like got vetoed by a landslide, I think it makes sense. Like people have kind of spoken. It's unlikely that that many people have changed their minds that they would vote on it again. But a good example of this is the trade deadline proposal. It literally passed by a 1-vote margin. If one person had voted the other way last season, then we would not would not have played without a trade deadline.
And wasn't it 50-50 this time?
It was a 2-vote margin for
more people voted to keep the trade deadline. So the people
or to keep no trade deadline.
Correct, but more people more people voted for the concept of playing without a trade deadline than last time. So that's interesting to me because last time it was very close, but this time more people, basically we won people over from last season who said no before. So
and I think materially too, it didn't actually change anything. Like the same, like almost in a stupid case study way. Like Steve did the exact same thing I did, like traded for a running back and won.
Well, I disagree because your trade was before the playoffs because that's what the rules were, and Steve's trade literally won him the championship, and it was well into the playoffs at that point.
They were both 11th hour trades, though. Like that trade
they were close.
Was
but your trade was during the playoffs.
Yeah. No, I know.
So that's the difference.
That is the difference for sure. But
I guess
I do want to point out that what you did is a extreme outlier, and it's just kind of crazy that did happen because literally, if you'd not made that trade, you would have got whacked, and Danny would have beat you.
Completely waxed.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So the thing about that is that's not going to happen every season. There will definitely people that make trades during playoffs where it absolutely goes sideways. Like for example. Trevor was trying to get a deal done, and Josh was asking for 3 firsts, like a lot. We all know. He complained on the podcast about it. We all know what that whole how that went. But Kyron Williams the following week got like 14 points. It would not have mattered. And if Trevor had made that trade, then he would be out 3 firsts for the next 3 years.
If I had
that's the other way that can go.
For JT for Kyron instead, I would have gotten bounced out, and it would have been Danny in the the.
Well, comparatively, the compensation that you would have sent.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it would have been even so, vastly different.
It would have been. I think it would have been different. I think that trade would have looked. But I mean, all other things being equal, and like Kyron and JT being relative players, like
so, I will say publicly that I am one of the people that would prefer that we keep a trade deadline. I think that squabbling about trades during the playoffs and dealing with that just personally as a commissioner is a headache, but enough people in the league seem to enjoy that aspect of gameplay, so I'm happy with keeping it around and dealing with that as a commissioner as long as people like that system and want to keep it. So I can't complain too much, but
my biggest problem, if going forward with any sort of trade, like lack of a trade deadline, is if a veto system does show up, because like if trades are done in the playoffs and then they get vetoed, that's really annoying. Like it's a lot of effort to waste on something that then gets canceled by a bunch of people who just don't want the trade to happen.
I will say that the collusion rules still exist. I mean,
of course,
I obviously feel that the trade that you made, Steve, is above board. I don't think there was collusion, and Trevor gives you shit about it, but he agrees. Like you made a good move, and he just says you cheated, but it's in jest. And
yeah, he knows. He knows,
and he said as much.
Yeah,
but here's the thing: when we have trades that are absurd. So if, for example, someone traded, let's say, a fifth for Kyron Williams, that would be kind of questionable. And
Yes.
I would definitely have a conversation with the people involved with that trade as to why the hell that's a good idea and veto it, because that's bullshit. You're trading an
Yeah.
RB1 for a 5th round pick, and that makes no sense. So if you're going to make bullshit trades in the playoffs, I'm going to pay closer attention and handle it with care and more scrutiny.
I think it's fair to say that the trades in the playoffs encourage more scrutiny, and that's not unreasonable.
I do think that people have higher expectations for return. Like if you're the player receiving draft compensation, I think it's implied that because you're trading when the value of draft picks are the lowest and the value of players are the highest, because a draft pick can't score you fantasy points this week, then you should expect as a buyer to give up more than you're willing. So that's reasonable. I think trading, 2 firsts for a running back 1 isn't cause for concern. But, if people are asking for too much and trades get made and then people have buyer's remorse, that's on them. But I don't necessarily think that's like collusion or it should be vetoed for that reason.
No,
but
my main issue is like I just don't want to ever see, and I don't think this is an issue, or I doubt it'll be an issue. But like, let's say that Ben traded Saquon for like 5 firsts to somebody who has just a stacked team like Trevor did this year, and that got vetoed. That would be really annoying. Like, if Trevor somehow had 5 firsts and wanted to pay that.
Oh, I wouldn't veto that.
No, but
if Trevor accumulated 5 firsts, yeah, exactly. If there was a veto system.
Yeah. That would be bullshit. I would agree. If there was a veto system, and I personally think, if someone wants to pay out the ass for the RB1 of that year, then if that's how they want to play it, sure. That's an insane price, but I'm not going to veto it just because I think they overpaid. I am going to veto it if the trade that you make clearly affects league parity or competitive integrity. Not parity, but competitive integrity. So if you're trading Kadarius Toney for Saquon Barkley, for example, I'm going to veto that because that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Don't make trades like that.
Come on. Yeah. Let's be real here.
Yeah. So
obviously there's still wiggle room for value, but yeah, let's get into the changes here.
Yeah. Sure. So
thresholds for starting.
Yeah, so we can just kind of gloss over some of these, but basically
for both of these it became 75%, right?
Yes,
so we need at least 73/4 of the league to say,
and that doesn't apply
to make a change to any roster spot.
So one thing I want to point out, and Steve, we should probably double check the wording in the Constitution because I don't remember off the top of my head, but generally, our rule is a 51% rule. I think we have something like that in the Constitution, but that's the way that it's been exercised. And basically what that means is if there's a tie, i.e. 6 teams vote for one answer and 6 teams vote for the other answer, then we defer to whatever the default state is. So in the event that we're adding something, we defer to not adding that thing. Or if we're voting to get rid of something, then we defer to whatever we already have in place. So if it
defers to the status quo.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a better way of saying it. So in this case, I want to make it clear this is not a 51. This is not a 76% rule. It is a 75. So if 3/4 of the league vote for something, then it will pass.
And it passes.
Yes. So yes, we voted to make it so that both starters and non-starter positions, so bench, taxi, and IR, require a 75% vote to be enacted. So yeah, these are the values. I know I posted the text version of this. I wrote it up and then kind of reworded it and then posted it in our Discord, but you can see the actual pie charts and stuff here. So this one's probably the biggest change of the entire survey that we should probably spend a little bit of time breaking down. So we decided to add a starting linebacker, and we also decided to by quite a few 10 people voted for this and 2 people voted to reject it. So the vast majority of the league wanted this change. And notably it is above that threshold of 75% we agreed would be the threshold to make a change like this, so it goes into effect. And then we had a conditional vote regarding when we would actually implement this, and the majority of people decided or voted for doing that now. So when the league reactivates next week, we will have an additional starter that you'll have to account for going forward. How do you guys feel about this?
For 2 years, but I really don't actually have that big a problem, in all honesty, with the
Same boat
this year.
Same boat precisely. I voted for 2 years out. I voted for it to start in the 26th season, but I think that this is absolutely fine. And I think most rosters are going to be able to handle it because of the dual position guys having been such a premium already. So it really shouldn't be too much of an issue, and it will deepen the requirements on the roster construction, which is really, I think that's great.
Yeah, I feel like if you voted against this change, I'd be curious what your reasoning for that is. I looked at everyone's roster. No one's going to have a problem putting in another linebacker because Sleeper does dual designation for defensive ends. It's really kind of not an issue because everyone has defensive ends and everyone has linebackers. So,
Yep.
I know that you would want to be using your defensive ends in your DL spot, but everyone has a plethora of linebackers and defensive ends, so it's not really going to be an issue for everyone to field a competitive roster. And even so, if you have concerns about the competitive integrity of every team, there are some seriously good options just sitting there on the waiver wire, which was my original argument for this.
In terms of linebackers, in the season.
Yeah, there are some very good linebackers that you could just go pick up off the waiver wire and just plug and play. And I think that now that this rule has been voted in, people will snag them up, and it will kind of dry up the waiver wire a little bit, which was kind of the intent for this proposal was to change make the waiver wire a little bit thinner at the linebacker position and ultimately defensive end, because you can just decide to play defensive ends. Like some people just have a lot of defensive ends, like a lot of really good defensive ends, and they can just plug them in as a linebacker, and that's no problem. They're outside linebackers in a lot of cases, so whatever.
For me, I think part of the hope too is that this would emphasize defensive players a little bit more on rosters by adding another starter to the defensive side, and it might reduce a little bit of the kind of offensive player bloat that we've got in certain places too. So like some of those fringe players might wind up more on the waiver wire on the offensive side that we haven't seen so far. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that it actually makes linebackers more valuable, because pure linebackers at this point are not, because of the roster, the just supply. They're just not that valuable.
Right. There's just so many of them, and this definitely increases the demand on them for sure. And it's not going to take away any points from your team. Very rarely do these guys score negative. So.
They don't. I mean, there really isn't a way for them.
It's not a use case.
Unless your guy is in there and he throws an interception or something.
Yeah, throws a lateral interception or something.
Some crazy situation like that.
Yeah,
which isn't going to happen, but
not likely.
I think that one concern there is for this is that IDP as a whole is kind of boom bust. So there may be some growing pains associated with that. Waiver wire players just scoring 30 out of nowhere, but honestly, that's more of a defensive back problem than it is a linebacker, and you can't play a defensive back here unless you've got a weird safety guy like Josh Metellus, who is designated as a linebacker and a safety or a DB. So really not an issue.
I wouldn't worry about that too much, honestly.
I know.
There's 3 guys with that in the league, and if you look at they might have one of those games.
Luvu, Chin, Metellus.
Yeah, my trade to
Sim,
Danny
yeah.
for Frankie Louvu for a sandwich is looking pretty stupid, but I'll take it. Enjoy,
Well,
Danny. I needed the fucking space on my bench. Ow. Well, yeah, I think that
I think this
doing
is
it
good. It
now.
also aligns us more with traditional IDP, where there are usually 2 starting linebacker slots as well as 2 DLs and 2 Ds.
I will
Like
say
it sets
that
us up more in
it.
line with those things.
I will say that
So
the
watch.
line. So you have 7 offensive players and a quarterback, so 8, and then 6 defensive players. Now we have 7 defensive players and 7 offensive players and a quarterback. So I think of it that way. It's like you're basically doing
Yeah.
7-on-7 with a quarterback, sort of.
Interesting.
I think, based on my research,
have-
that is a very popular format. But
we have an
usually
extra flex, though?
people usually do super flex. No, we have
It's
7
it's
IDP,
starting.
7 IDP, 8 offense. That includes the
Yeah.
quarterback. But I
You
consider
have 2 at each position for IDP plus the flex.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so I consider the quarterback kind of on an island because they score a lot with our format. So the passing per first down scoring is kind of insane. So they're kind of on an island, in my opinion, quarterbacks. And we also only play with one. The
Right.
Usually dynasty leagues play with Superflex. I personally don't like
I don't like
Superflex.
flex. It doesn't make sense.
So I didn't really because you don't play with 2 quarterbacks in real
No, you
football.
play
I'm
with
kind
one.
of a purist in that sense. I understand why Superflex is popular is because there's a lot of quarterbacks to go around and all that, but everyone there if you go look at our waiver wire, the quarterback options on the waiver wire are basically
Boo-bag.
nothing. So
Yeah, everybody carries at least 3 quarterbacks essentially, unless you're
and
like
that's in one QB.
Mhm.
They're definitely not as valuable. Like quarterbacks are the most valuable in Superflex. They are the most important player to get in Superflex. I would say with our format, the most important player to get is like a difference making defensive end and a running back, like equally. They're
Both of those.
both
Both of
super
those
important.
positions are huge.
Yeah. Maybe not defensive end as much as running back, but like.
I think there's a clear tier break there. I don't think defensive ends are like. I would still put them lower in value than a like elite wide receiver, or a wide receiver, like a good wide receiver even.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't run the numbers since we did the planning for the scoring during the startup and basically the rules building phase of the league. But that was kind of what it looked like. It's like the best
That was the
players,
idea.
the best players were quarterbacks, and basically the stud like your CMCs 2 years ago kind of players. So like the dual threat game breaker running backs like Saquon Barkley last year. And then like your Max Crosby's, your Myles Garrett's, your TJ Watts, and then by a close margin, your wide receiver ones like your Justin Jefferson's, Jamar Chase sort of players.
They kind of all filter in around the same point there.
Yeah.
But there's way more of the wide receivers at that tier than there are the defensive ends.
But you can get away with like a Green Bay style fantasy team where you just have like a bunch of wide receiver 2s and you'll be okay because of the boom bust nature of wide receivers. They get solid points. So, and there's a lot of them. Whereas starting running backs are hard to come by, like game break, like your Jahmyr Gibbs and Devon Achans and those guys are hard to come by. They're not really a dime a dozen, but they are plug and play. Like those guys come and go every year and burn hot and fast. So it's kind of interesting, the dynamic between wide receivers and running backs. But anyway, this isn't a discussion about all that. That just kind of went on a tangent about roster construction and stuff. But basically, yeah, we've got a new starting linebacker that everyone's going to have to care about this year. And I was a little surprised people were so gung-ho to do it this year. as opposed to next year or even the year after that. I thought that there would actually be more people in favor of doing it later on than now. But yeah, democracy.
Yeah,
You guys
here we
spoke.
go.
Also, like I said, for the previous reasons that I explained, don't really feel like it's that big of a deal. I
No.
was a proponent of doing it
Fine.
in a year or two, just because I wanted to give people who may object to this idea some time to adjust. But y'all are adults and you're good at the game, so I'm sure you'll figure it out. The waiver wire will get picked clean before our rookie draft, I'm sure.
Especially with the prospective ad slots that will get
The
added
additional 5.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. All right. We rejected the additional bench slot. Nothing to say about that. So this is an interesting one. We are going to add a specific use case for players that are surprise inactive. This basically covers the situation with Puka Nacua this year, where he was on IR for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then on Thursday, out of nowhere, without much buzz, like it was basically like an hour before the game started, there were people on social media talking about how Puka Nacua might play, and then he did. And then everyone who had Puka Nacua that was at work or not paying attention or whatever suddenly couldn't manage their rosters. And for some reason, there is a weird workaround where teams can fix this themselves if they get in a state where players locked on their IR because they've already played and are no longer IR eligible. So I felt that it made sense just to kind of put pen to paper here and make it a specific rule that allows people who get players locked in IR to simply move them out. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to just put them into their lineup because they're already played, but I think it makes sense to just put them onto your bench, and you have to be, an adult and drop a player to
Roster
make
compliant
in order
basically.
to make your roster. It basically sets you up so you can actually manage your roster. And the one thing I wanted to have a discussion about is the verbiage specifically says surprise active. So this could apply technically to a player that plays on like Sunday and there's ample notice. So let's say that they report all week that he will probably play or may play and come off IR, but it's kind of up in the air. And then game time decision, they end up activating them, and then they get locked on their roster because someone slept through it or wasn't paying attention or whatever. I think it makes sense that because there's this wonky workaround to just shift that player off their roster in a future week, and then it makes it eligible for the current week, that it's okay. Like, I'm not going to punish.
The
Like,
IR slots are independent of time.
because here's the only way that you could abuse it, right? Is you're basically keeping an extra roster spot up until the very last minute. But then the thing is like, I'm moving your player from IR to your bench. And if you actually want to make a change, you're going to have to drop somebody anyway. So it doesn't really give you a competitive advantage.
Right.
Like, are you really going to add a
You
player
have
from
to
the
have
waiver
had an
wire
empty bench
just
spot.
to have an invalid roster to then move that player to your bench and then drop that player that you just activated from IR? I mean, if that's what you want to do, I don't see why you shouldn't be able to do that. I don't really. Basically, what I'm saying is, I don't really see how.
It's ridiculous.
I don't see how this could be abused, and I don't know if people have problems with it. We can tweak it, but like I think for the most part, if someone has a roster that's locked because a player on IR is no longer on IR or is eligible to play, that it's okay to request it.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people will understood that this was an IR thing because like we ran into the situation a couple times. Like
It's a
this happened
specific
with
case.
me,
Yeah.
like with like Pacheco, and like I wasn't gonna play him anyway. Like I don't remember if I made a change to my roster or not. Or actually, I did. I know I didn't because I couldn't do anything. Because but like,
Well, technically, you could. Like I said, if your player has played, you could just go into a future week, move the player off your IR into your bench, and then if you go to the current week, they're on your bench now because I don't know, maybe
Because
that's a feature. It's a way the sleeper
the
platform
IR
works. Like you could do
IR
it
is
yourself.
independent of time. It's just it's a bench spot that can only be occupied by certain players.
I
Or
guess.
players of
I
certain
mean, like,
statuses, coding wise.
I
The
mean, I
game
wasn't gonna
doesn't
play him
care.
anyway, but like, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you can escape a guy that is eligible to play from IR
Yeah.
using this weird, silly time workaround.
Yeah.
Even if they're locked. But
My point of this is that there is a way that people can do this themselves anyway, so we might as well just make it in a like cut out
yeah,
the
put it
middleman
put
here.
it in writing to say like this is how you do it. Like
If Sleeper ends up patching it, then at least we have a clear rule for it that specifies how we handle the situation. Like I don't see
right.
the problem with
yeah.
that.
I suspect this will be changed by Sleeper because of the Puka thing. There was a lot of
Yeah,
like
maybe.
chatter
Yeah.
about it, and like the fact people couldn't change their rosters or like mess with their rosters was like the big sticking point. Like
Right.
you never know how they'd implement it because that's just like speculation.
Yeah, who
Here's
knows
what I
what
would
they
hope.
do
Here's what I would hope they would
choosable,
do.
but
If you
Yeah.
got an ineligible player on your IR, they should just allow you to move them to the bench, even if they're locked because they already played. Just like
Yep.
I've been talking about. Like
Yeah.
if you have a fucked up IR situation, we'll fix it.
Yeah, I think it will fix it if you can't. I think is kind of where
Yeah,
we're at.
if
But
you can
still,
do it yourself, we'll do it for
you're
you.
still
If
gonna
you
wind up with a locked player on your bench, and you have to drop somebody,
yeah
not them,
yeah.
in order to
Well, I'm
have
curious.
that,
Everyone else who's
or as
listening to
long as you have
this,
a legal roster.
let me know how
Yeah.
you feel. I'm actually really curious to know how you feel. The point of this was to tighten up our rules and make sure that we're addressing edge cases and that we have a precedent set for certain situations. Because when we ran into this mid-season, we basically were like, "What do we do?" And then we looked at the rules and realized, "Oh, this isn't specifically in the rules, so I guess we'll just do a vote because that's what our rules say. If we can't resolve it, we do a vote," and that's what we did. So. And then Trevor
we
ended
got
up
this.
fixing it himself anyway because of the
Yep.
workaround. So it ended up not mattering. But yeah. Anyway,
All right.
Now we can just.
I'm sure
expedite
this will
that
be
whole
talked
thing.
about again, and we'll encounter it again in
Yeah,
the future.
it will
But
come up.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Trade deadline.
We already
Nothing
talked
much
about
to say here. We're still
Yeah,
playing with the
the
trade deadline.
eight
We
8 to 4.
we
Yep.
talked about it earlier. Yeah. 8
Mhm.
to 4. Yep. So like I said, we want someone who voted to no. They voted no last year. Voted yes this year, basically. So that's interesting to me. So this one, we voted against the idea of subjecting trades made during playoffs to a league vote. So we are not going to vote on trades made during the playoffs, fantasy playoffs.
We should never vote at all on vetoing trades in this league. That's just my 2 cents.
I agree. That is my
That's kind of my feeling too.
that's my ethos. I think that you should trust the commissioner to police the league and make sure that trades made are in the interest of competitive integrity. And as a commissioner, I can say that I would never veto a trade just because I feel like it's a trade that I should have made. Basically, I wouldn't I wouldn't veto a trade just because a team is getting better. I would veto a trade because there is a clear problem with the trade, like I was talking about earlier, where there's no clear strategy from one side of the trade that would in any way benefit them. Like if you're trading away your future for nothing, I'm gonna question that. Just because I don't like a trade, like if you made let's say AJ Brown for Josh Downs trade, I wouldn't veto that, even though I disagree. Maybe whoever's receiving Josh Downs really believes in Josh Downs. I can't veto it just because I don't like the trade, but it doesn't necessarily break the game. It's pretty clear. It's like I like what Josh says. It's like sexual abuse. It's like what it is when you see it. You know what I mean? It's like what collusion looks like.
Yeah.
It's
Porn.
it's
Yeah.
clearly wrong. you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
because it's questionable doesn't mean it's collusion.
This is also why we have two commissioners, and I'm absolutely going to come on record here and with same as Scott, like uphold those same things and like, yeah, I'm not gonna veto a trade just because I don't like it or I feel like I've missed out on anything
Yeah.
or because it seems the only reason any time a trade would get veto is if it is patently unfair for one reason or another
Mhm.
and needs to be addressed for reasons of league health more than anything
Yeah.
else. You
Should
know,
have gone with palpably unfair.
Yeah.
palpably unfair is
Like,
exactly yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
Palpably unfair is exactly the term of you.
like if
Yeah.
someone traded literally all their draft capital that they can legally use
Right,
for
everything they've got,
it, literally everything that I possibly have
even
for
for like a
Cedric
bevy of
Tillman,
players,
I was
you
gonna
know,
say Derek Carr.
or
I was thinking
Derek
Derek
Carr
Carr,
or something.
yeah,
It's like,
right,
oh, that is
Russell
ridiculous.
Wilson,
That is
yeah,
ridiculous. I'm gonna veto a trade like that
right.
instantly. I would definitely have some words in private with the people involved in that trade. Like, what are you doing? You know, but you guys are good players. Like, I am thankful that there is a minimal amount of drama regarding transactions in this league. Like, I think like the biggest issues that we've had have been like the Jonathan Taylor trade and the Daryl Henderson situation. That was pretty much it
Well, the
regarding
Aaron
like
Jones trade
transactions.
got some heat.
I don't think so. Not from where I'm
Well,
sitting.
I
I
mean,
thought that was
from
like
the
whatever.
obvious person, Trevor.
Yeah, but Trevor can
Trevor
answer.
had thoughts, but that's
Yeah,
about it.
Trevor's got thoughts about
Trevor always got
everything.
thoughts, so
yeah,
yeah.
that's what I said. Trevor come Trevor.
So I appreciate Trevor though. I like the contrarian attitude.
And it's
St-
not. I don't
stir
think
the
it's
pot.
like out of line either to question any trade, like just to question it. Like,
Yeah, sure. Why not?
yeah,
Like if you, everyone has their own valuation of players, and not everyone's going to agree. Much to Steve's chagrin,
Hmm.
people don't like his trades that he sends out, and he bitches to me about it all the time. So,
Yep,
that's how it is.
true. Yep.
that's just because Steve doesn't understand how age works.
Eh.
No comment. So, so these next couple here are related to the proposal to vote on trades, and we rejected the vote on trades initiative or proposal.
Mhm.
So these got
Yes.
voided. So that means that these effectively didn't happen.
Yep. These votes don't matter.
Yeah. Okay. Next one. So revise the prize distribution basically to make it very top heavy. This was relatively
This is
liked.
another 8-4
Yeah, this was a relatively popular change. But
or
more people decided to just keep
non-change.
the status quo. So we're
Yeah.
keeping our current prize schedule, where essentially if you make the playoffs, you're at least getting your buy-in back, and then you make more
Mhm.
money as you advance.
It's still spread.
The spirit of
We
this,
still have the long tail model here as opposed
yeah,
to the
the
big.
spirit of this was to basically put more weight on first, second, and third. So y'all voted. Let's keep it the way it is. We can always readdress it in the future. This is like what Joe was talking about. If we vote on similar initiatives in the future, how many times do we do it? This is the kind of proposal I have no problem voting on every
I
year. If
imagine we're
people
going to
want
be
to shuffle
litigating.
things around or do
Yeah.
different things with the prizes, I'm all ears for different ideas. And that's what this was. And basically, people said, nah, let's just keep it the way it is for now. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean that's also worthwhile to come back to every year. Just like
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth discussing.
yeah.
Uh,
This, however, I don't know if it's going to come up again.
yeah,
Yeah, this is maybe
This
the
was
one
a
where
little
this gets
overwhelming.
banished to the shadow realm
yeah.
for it.
This was not a popular proposal. So basically, the idea was to charge for waiver activity in free agency, not drops, just ads, and essentially that would bolster the prize pool at the end of the season, and then that money would go to the victors based on the prize schedule. The same, basically ratios at which we would give the money would go from the pot collected from this to the people that won. But nobody wants this idea, so we're not.
Nobody wants this.
Yeah.
I
Except,
think the
except
basic
for one
ethos
person.
behind people
One
not wanting
lone
it is,
person.
I don't want to pay you guys more money, which is fair.
So
Yeah.
I
Ultimately.
gave my 2 cents in our Discord channel today when I posted the results for this, but I do feel like this is a unpopular proposal simply because of the format we're playing. Dynasty is heavily reliant on making waiver moves, and the idea that people would be limited monetarily to playing the game to make their team better year over year is an unpopular idea. I feel like this kind of system works well with redraft, where there's not much at stake year over year, and you basically can just go crazy to win it all in the current season without much regard for how your roster is put together for the future. So I feel like that is kind of the reason why people were disinterested in this idea, just because of the format. Because if this was a proposal for a redraft league, I would be very interested in this idea. I think it would be cool. I would play like that.
I mean,
that's fine.
I am also on Joe's train though. I am just not interested in paying any more money. Like I think the fees schedule is perfectly fine where it's at.
Yep.
And I'm glad that we're not getting nickled and dimes by LeaugeSafe anymore.
Yes, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we can move
Which
on
is
to that.
exactly
We
the
don't need
next
that.
one. Like we don't need to
Oh
list
yeah, it is.
you're here, right?
Yeah.
Which yes, unanimous.
Yeah, so
Hooray,
our
the
one
blue
our
circle of
one
consensus.
proposal that we all agree is a good change. Unanimous decision, the only one. So basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up a savings account, a high yield savings account, and I'm going to transfer the money that's currently in our league safe to myself, and then I'm going to move it to that account, and it will basically just earn interest over time. And then I will use the interest earned from that to vote. Like, we'll think of things to do, fun things to do with it. Either that pays
Once
for something.
it accumulates enough.
Yeah, once it accumulates enough, obviously, but it'll accumulate quickly. It'll not be an insignificant amount of money that's being generated from this. But I want to make it clear, I don't intend on just pocketing that money. It is your guys' money, so I will be open to ideas of how to use the money that is accrued from interest, and then we can do something fun with it, like additional like rings, or like more trophies, or like something funny for the toilet bowl, or whatever, like whatever you guys want to do with it. But it'll be a couple years probably before that actually is pertinent.
Yeah.
But
Scott, one thing you should do when you set up that high yield savings account is see what the bank's process is for adding and removing people off the account, so that you can add Steve, and if Steve ever does not want to be commissioner and there is a new commissioner, they can be added.
I plan on doing it through Ally, and just
That should be fine.
I think you can transfer ownership of bank accounts pretty easily with that, but it's also just as easy to just whoever, if I die or decide I'm done with fantasy and don't want to do this shit anymore, I would just probably transfer the money to the new treasurer and then let them deal with it, rather than just giving the bank account away. So
right.
But that's not going to happen because I'm fucking obsessed with fantasy football, and been doing this for like a decade at this point, so I'm probably not going to stop.
Yeah, probably pretty stable.
Yeah. Also, I like playing fantasy because it's a social game to do with my friends that I don't get to see as much anymore. So that's basically the main reason that I do this. Not just because fantasy football is fun, but because I play with you guys. Like, I wouldn't find this nearly as fun if it was a bunch of randoms. So there's that.
On that note, did you escape PsyOp League?
No, I'm still dude, I'm invested in that because I've been working for years to get draft capital, but I don't want to turn this podcast into that stupid bullshit league anyway.
No,
I'd rather not talk about it. I mean, it's free.
I'm out. I don't know anything about it anymore.
I'll keep you updated on the juicy details, though.
Yeah, I would.
I don't,
but not during the podcast.
Yeah, later.
So what I'm gonna do with this is I'm going to make a new channel in our Discord, and I'm basically gonna have a running balance of how much money is in the account that I'll update periodically, and I will also have the payment status for every person in the league, just like you can see in LeaugeSafe today. You can tell who's paid, who hasn't paid, how much money is in the pot, and everything. So all of those transparency features, if you call it that, will still be available even though I'm holding the money privately. And I hope you guys trust me to do that, which I think you do because you all decided to do this. So I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And
Means I got to pull that last $75 out of LeaugeSafe.
yes, do that. Also, I will say that the money I'm pulling out will not impact your winnings because they are no longer in the league pot. So this isn't going to affect payout money I've already paid out. That money is in your personal LeaugeSafe wallet. So if you guys have funds there, don't worry about it. I'm just going to pull the money that you gave during the startup to pay for your last year payment. So basically the additional year you paid for up front to get into the startup draft, that is going to be transferred. And then I will collect the money privately from each of you using I have Venmo and PayPal. So if you have something else that you use and can't use Venmo or PayPal, well, you can give me cash or crypto or whatever the fuck. We'll figure it out. I don't know. I guess I could, if you're a Cash App guy, I guess I could go set up a Cash App account. But I got Venmo and PayPal, so we can use that if that works for everybody. Anything else? I don't think so.
Nothing here.
Yep.
Thank you for taking this on, by the way.
Yeah. Getting rid of the stupid fees was definitely needed. It was kind of ridiculous that we basically had an additional player in our league that was receiving a payout.
Yeah, we didn't need to get nickel and dime.
Like it was literally $60 a year they were making from us, and then on top of that, they were making pocket change from whenever you would put money in. If you weren't winning any money and keeping it in your wallet, every time you added funds to your LeaugeSafe account, they would hit you with like a 1% tax or something, like a fee. And, that was kind of bullshit. So we're not going to do that anymore. You're just going to send me the $75 every year, and it's going to accrue money as opposed to cost us money. So
yeah,
pretty cool change. Okay, I lied. This is probably the biggest change, other than the linebacker thing kind of pales.
Yeah,
in
adding the
comparison to
linebacker
this.
and then this big one. Yeah.
So I don't really want to go over the propositions that failed. I want to talk about the one that actually passed. This is what we're going to do. We are going to keep the current toilet bowl format. So the funny seating that we have where people are being put into certain brackets and assigned bye weeks will be based on max points 4 and will be seeded based on max points 4. So if you are a poopy team, you will be playing poopy teams in the toilet bowl, and you will be playing against people who win against the other poopy teams. And if you win, you go to a winner's bracket of sorts. And then if you win again, then you are awarded with a draft pick. And so basically before, the idea was the earlier you win twice in the toilet bowl, the
higher your compensation.
The higher your draft position would be. Now, what we are doing is the earlier you win twice, the better compensatory draft pick that you get will be. And that draft pick will be kind of mid because it will basically be a super late or early 4th, a super late or early 5th, and basically the Mr. Irrelevant pick. That's all you get. So it's not a big deal in terms of the draft capital.
The first 3 rounds are completely unimpacted.
Yes,
by the additional picks.
Correct. It is the 13th pick in the 3rd round, the 13th pick in the 4th round, and the very last pick of the draft. Basically, after the draft is over, somebody gets a freebie, and that is awarded based on 7th place, 9th place, and 11th. 7th will get the 313. 9th will get the 413, and 11th, basically the person who escapes the toilet bowl gets 513. They get Mr. Irrelevant, the official
because they're poopy.
Mr. Irrelevant because they're poopy. That being said, if you lose, you get nothing. So get fucked.
Still have to win.
Still gotta win.
Still sucks to suck.
Sucks to suck. I think this is
keeping an incentive to win here.
Honestly, but full transparency.
But crucially, draft order is always going to be determined by reverse.
Yes, the teams who struggled to
worst
get
teams
points,
the steel teams, will always have the higher.
Higher draft picks. We will not have a situation like Matt where his team was objectively struggling and very bad this season, and I think he got 4th overall because he managed to get lucky eventually.
Right.
something like that.
Or the situation like
But
we've had with Kelsey for the past 2 years,
yeah,
where
where
she's had a
Kelsey's had
relatively middling team
and she gets first
and
overall back
first
to back.
overall twice in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's not an indictment on Kelsey. She is just playing the game. It doesn't make
Yeah,
sense that a
You
team
lucked into the
of Kelsey's
situation
caliber
sometimes.
is getting first overall back to back
Overall pick.
season. So clearly something was fucky
That's
here.
on us, the creators of the system. So
So
this is our attempt to rectify.
I think we fixed it. I will go on the
We'll
record.
see. No, this is another one where we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to do at least 1 year and like try this out and see how it goes.
I will
I
go on
think.
the record of saying that I was a bigger fan of the other two propositions just because now I've got to manage all this draft pick nonsense. But
Yeah,
I
I'll
do
help
think
you.
this I will
I'll
say
take the draft picks on.
well
Aside from the actual like running it.
the Tluge Tools development work to get this to work will be interesting and not
Sure.
and very
Can't help you
manual
with that.
and shitty because Sleeper literally doesn't support this feature and this is all going to be done manually, which is the reason why I didn't like this change. But
Yeah.
I do think this is the most fun of the three. It is just the most wonky and the most manual and the
It's
most
the most work
confusing and the most
for
complex
sure.
and the most work. But I do think it's the most fun, and I like fun. So we'll see how that goes.
I think in actual draft day implementation, it will turn out to be a lot easier. But I think for our sake, we might say I don't know. Trading them is going to be the thing that's going to be the hardest. I think.
I disagree. I think that if people make a trade and then they are discussing as part of the trade that they are moving on one of these draft picks, that they just tell a commissioner, or preferably say in the league chat in Sleeper after the
Yeah.
trade goes through to be like, by the way,
Right.
this involved a comp pick, and that trade is going that this should go through, and also please commissioner remember that this draft pick has been traded, and I will
Right.
manage that in Tluge Tools.
Okay.
I
'Cause,
can't
yeah, they
show.
did.
So currently, there's no support in Tluge Tools for currently owned draft picks, but there is a way that I could technically make it so that it appears on your draft page after the players are selected. So I'll have to figure that out. Honestly, I haven't had any time to work on Tluge Tools. Work has been crazy, and I have a 1-year-old, so that's been
Yeah.
challenging. I would like to make
Yeah.
some changes. There are a lot of things I would like to do with the site. There's a lot of fixes that I've actually made quietly in the background, but I haven't really added any features. But hopefully, I can do some stuff before the season starts. We got a lot of time. But that being
It's
said,
still super data
this
rich, and you have a 1-year-old,
yeah,
so don't beat yourself up too much, and just accomplish what you can.
yep,
You know.
that's kind of my plan. But I do think that it is important that since we have this funny system to implement some kind of support for it, so it's a little easier to digest because these will literally be phantom draft picks. Like this will all be managed outside of the game, and it's
Right.
kind of silly. But hey, I think it's a pretty creative idea. So props to Matt for coming up with a creative plan. I think this was his idea. We'll see how it works, and if we absolutely fucking hate it, we can revise it. But I will say that we should keep the draft order determination rule forever. I think that should never change.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
And I
I
think
think it's
everyone else would
important
agree
at the
too.
end of the season to get feedback from the three people that end up with the comp picks to see if it actually worked to keep them like playing and caring.
That, and when the draft day comes and you're all
Yeah.
sitting at my house and we're doing the draft, how that experience is for everybody. Like everyone's gonna have to remember, like, oh, at the end of the third round, we pause the draft, someone picks a player. Like you can't
Well,
forget, you
we
know.
paused for 2 minutes. Like we
Mhm.
paused for a pick,
Yeah.
right? Like
I
we
honestly
No,
think it's not.
basically
that's
we have
it.
just have to start a timer,
It
and we're
really
like, all right,
isn't. I
pause it,
honestly
start a
don't think
timer,
that the
start it.
picks are the issue. It's more that it's all this stuff that's outside of stuff that's in the app, and we're all kind of just agreeing
Yeah,
that this is how
having
it
to.
works, and it's just like this
But, I mean,
wonky kind of
that's why
custom
it's in a
solution.
document,
But yeah,
right? I mean, if it wasn't constitutionalized
yeah,
in the way that it would be a lot scarier for sure.
yeah.
But we will have this pretty well
I will say, I
lined out
think
in the
our
document.
Constitution is very well written. Whoever wrote that is a genius.
Yeah, we did a good job, didn't we?
I think it's pretty solid.
except for where we didn't. Like
Steve and I, when we were writing that, we literally brought up like legal documents and tried to structure it like a legal document. So we did our best to make it legit.
We did.
Anyway, I don't want to just sit here and...
Let's keep going. 2 subs. 2, the number of subs that you get.
Yep, this was a good change.
We get one more.
We
get one more.
I think this was... because no one voted to get rid of it, I think it kind of speaks for itself how popular this change was. And I also don't think it, based on the actual vote distribution, I don't think it really matters how many we have. But I'm glad we have 2.
I like that.
Because just one felt like not enough, I think. And that's why I liked this proposal. Sorry, Danny. No additional IR slot. You are
no
good.
IR slots. Yeah.
This actually...
because we got the 75%, right? Like, I mean, this in previous years that would have passed on a 51%.
No, it wouldn't have, because 7 people voted to reject this.
Yeah, this was rejected.
Right.
By the old rule, if we had no precedent for this, by the 75% rule, even if this... So, yeah, to your point, if this was flipped, where 7 people voted to approve it, it wouldn't have passed.
It still would not have passed.
Correct.
Yes.
But this is actually was a wildly unpopular, if you think about it. Well, not wildly, but it was more people voted to reject it. But I have a sneaking suspicion this specific rule will be on a future survey. We'll see.
Yeah, I think this one's going to pop up a few times.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Everyone has dealt with injuries, and
for people that have not suffered through like massive injuries or like serious like not just a rash of injuries, but like having your star players like go down.
Not even just stars,
really runs into
but
that.
when you, regardless of how good the players are that are out, I think once you get to the point where you have 1, 2, 3 IR players on your bench, then you're like, can we please get some more IR slots, guys? Like Danny, that's why Danny was like, come on, because he played, and Jordan too, played all season with IR players in and out, like in their bench all season. And that sucks. It feels bad. And basically everyone else said tough shit. So, yeah.
Subs the brakes.
I imagine this will come up again. And I have no problem putting this to vote. Kind of.
We'll vote on this.
It's kind of a vibe check year to year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But yep, deal with it. And then similarly, Taxi Squad. People felt the same about this, basically. 50-50, but not enough to pass, and kind of lukewarm. Some people thought it's a good idea, some people don't. Not much to say there. All right.
What about our supplemental question?
Yep. And then the last one, the supplemental question. Sorry that this happened, but I sent the survey out, collected results, and then this got added. Yeah, this got missed, so sorry. But you guys had no problem. I didn't have to hunt anyone down to vote on the supplemental survey, so you guys rock. Basically, this was a rule or a proposal to limit teams that are in the playoffs to trading with only teams inside of their bracket. So basically people in the losers bracket. So if you're in the toilet bowl, you can't trade with people who are competing for the belt, and vice versa. So only toilet bowl people can trade with toilet bowl people. This got knacked pretty resoundingly. People have said that they want to be able to trade with whoever they want to trade with.
Anybody. Yeah.
So, yep.
Restrictions on trades are dumb.
Generally.
Yeah, as a general rule of thumb.
So, that's it for the survey.
Yeah, that'll do it. And that pretty much puts us at a solid episode for us. So, do you guys want to save the kind of draft roundup for a theoretical next time?
Yeah, we could maybe do an episode in a bit, and
maybe
while we're after
after the combine.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, when the combine's done, and then we have kind of some result, because like we had the champion, we had the Natty, and then we had the Senior Bowl, and I'll be honest, I didn't have time to watch them, so I'm gonna have to go back and watch
Me
them.
neither.
The Senior
Watching
Bowl is a rough watch, I will say, because it's more.
Yeah, I was about to say, watching the Senior Bowl is not fun. It is not a fun TV.
Yeah.
By watch it, I would
No.
say go watch the highlights on YouTube probably, and not watch the like multi-day event that it is. It's more interesting for like hardcore college fans and scouts type people, film guys. So
it's basically just like who are the guys that like performed well against people who will be either will either be drafted, be NFL players,
or are near
who are
that
the guys where you have questions about like their level of competition, and then seeing them against good competition. That's basically it. And you don't actually need to watch any of that because it's so well covered that like if you want that information,
you could just read some articles about who's looking good and blah blah blah. And honestly, the combine is more of as unfortunate as it is, the combine is more of a vector for that kind of content anyway.
It's one of the last stops on the kind of whole draft hullabaloo before.
It's kind of the gold standard for evaluating prospects, even though it has literally nothing to do with football.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that like the actual like football aspect of it is the important thing in the combine. It's the medicals, it's who's meeting with who, and are there any like red flags on players?
Like Caleb Williams not doing anything at the combine.
Wait, who?
Caleb Williams did nothing.
He did nothing. He didn't go.
That's not a red flag, though.
To me, it is.
I don't think so. I think he's fine.
That's on you, and
I know it's on me. I'm a hater. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck the Bears, but Caleb Williams did fine.
Yeah, I don't begrudge anybody who doesn't want to like cost themselves $1. So yeah.
I think my opinion on that is, if you're worth it, like what's the risk of like showing your stuff at the like why not? Like
millions of dollars, that's what.
If you're if you're all that in a bag of chips, then fucking why not? You know?
He went number 1 overall anyway, so whatever, you know.
Yeah,
fair point.
No, like the combine is for people to make money.
I also don't think that.
Like, if you're gonna
the combine's usefulness for a player is to someone who's trying to raise their draft stock.
Steve,
Caleb was
let's be honest. Let's be honest. There's nothing that Caleb Williams is going to do at the combine that would hurt his draft stock last year. Let's be honest.
Yes, there is. Yes,
there is. Absolutely. No. If he throws a few bad balls.
Jalen Carter had like the worst fucking combine I've ever seen, and he still is like a high first-round pick. So,
dude, he cost himself millions of dollars.
He cost himself millions of dollars going from like, top 5 to top 10.
Yeah, no, he cost himself millions of dollars. Yeah,
disagree.
Don't go if it's bad. Yeah.
Disagree. If his awful combine really mattered, he would have fell to like second round.
He still lost millions of dollars, dude. The difference between 1 and 2 is millions of dollars.
Well, I think we should just agree to disagree.
Well, we'll talk about it more after the.
God hates money and doesn't want players to get paid.
I just think people should fucking show up for the combine because it matters. As much as I disagree with it, it matters. So.
And consistency is what Scott's going for here. That's exactly what he just said.
It starts a week from the day that this is. So, kind of relatively soon on your radar to keep an eye out to,
I will
for
say
the next NFL weekend, and then the draft is in April. So
I will say the combine is far more interesting than as like a product and like just as something to watch as an entertainment piece than the Senior Bowl. Not as much as the Natty, but like the Senior Bowl is definitely less interesting.
I mean, if you want to see future NFL players do like Olympic level shit, then it's
kind of fun to just like sit down over a weekend and just like watch DBs run 40 times. I don't know. I just think that stuff's kind of
40 times are fun.
Yeah. 40s are fun. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's like
I watched Xavier Worthy do his thing live at the combine.
Yeah,
that was
that's cool.
I was like, yo, that's
cool.
sick. That guy's gonna be a high draft pick in our rookie draft, and then he got picked by the Chiefs, and I was like, oh shit. So that that's cool.
Sometimes you just end up seeing Chris Jones' dick.
Yeah.
His reaction to that is
Yeah.
he's just like,
Sorry.
That shit's so funny.
oh my god.
His story about it too is hilarious.
Yeah, the story is really good.
I love Chris Jones, man. That dude's a riot. He's
Yep.
a good dude.
Word.
Yeah, so we can have another
right.
episode around then, and we can talk
Probably in
about
about 2 weeks.
we can talk
we'll
about combine
back.
prospects or whatever. We'll figure it out. It'd
Yeah.
be good.
We
Good,
should
just
just
kind
do
of
it.
like
Well, no,
Draft.
we'll do
We
the
actually wanna do
2024 draft roundup, and then talk about combine risers and prospects
Yep.
out of that.
Yep,
That'll be a fun one too. So yeah, look forward to it, please.
All right, guys.
With
I
that,
think that wraps it up.
all right.
Yep.
Yep.
All right,
Well,
well, as
running
we
back
all
to
know,
win championships.
Offense wins championships.
Yeah.
Chiefs. Take notes.
Yeah. Take notes.
If
Yeah.
you can't remember, and if you're going to stop the run, make sure that you're not betting on a quarterback to beat you, because that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, AJ
Jalen
Brown
Hurts
still
beat the living
fucking
shit
good.
out of them.
Yeah,
and
really.
Kendrick Lamar beat the living shit out of Drake.
Yeah, no,
Dude,
Drake
who's that?
Drake
Who's
is a
that?
cultural bombshell at this point. Like he's just gone. Like
He got cratered.
yeah.
Dude, yeah.
All right,
That
Devin-
guys.
dude need to go to jail like Meek Mills to rebuild his reputation, man.
Something like that.
Yeah.
All right,
probably.
guys. Well, we'll see you in a couple weeks. And unfortunately, I can't say Steve sucks because he won the championship. But we'll be back to that soon enough.
We'll
sure.
get there. Yeah.
Nah, Steve still sucks.
All right, whatever.
Haters.
All right.
All right.
Damn right.
See you
Peace.
guys.
Later.